Well, my name is Nicholson. I've been in this studio now for over 30 years. I built it myself, well, with other people's help, but it's been a great space to work with. I set it out with perfect north light, and it really is without shadows, quite beautiful kind of light. So it's been successful. The only thing that I would have liked different is I should have built it bigger. So we also have our home is underneath, and it's only a one-bedroom house, in spite of the fact that it's quite large. Well, you're asking what inspires me in my art, and I really don't know, because it was something that was always there. And at the age of 6, I knew I wanted to be an artist. So I wouldn't say that any one thing inspired me, you know. It's a whole sequence of events. It's basically the only thing that I could do well. So, you know, I moved into that direction. And my whole life has been about trying to support my art in some way or another. So I've had to find lots of alternatives. So I've done public art and various just small jobs at one point. When I first came from Britain to the States, when we lived here for a while, I delivered telephone books, you know, stuff like that. So, working backwards. At the moment, I'm working on themes that involve the lines in my hand. So that's like a self-portrait of a different kind. It's also that the same theme is tied up with a theme called the toxic garden, which is about plants, how they protect themselves against things eating them, and how amazing they are in terms of their chemistry. So just the forms, trying to balance the forms to make a decent painting, and it be about something which is poisonous, is a bit tricky sometimes. So sweet peas are a favorite because the tendrils are very linear, and the colors are nice, and I like the irony of something called a sweet pea when it can actually paralyze you. Okay, so this is one of the themes that I've been working on. In this case, it's morning glory, which is a poisonous plant. It was used years ago to get high, but it's appealing to me because of the tendrils, the way that they twist, and it just makes for a good subject. Of course, it's also a plant in my garden, and that brings me to my 52 Weeks project, which is one painting done every week for a year without any overlaps. Each one was finished at Sunday at 12 o'clock, regardless. And it was a great discipline. But each one is a plant from my garden, some of which may be poisonous, but that theme came a little bit after. But the important thing is that the discipline of trying to get something finished in a week and then to get the next one to make sense was what I needed. I also felt that I was overworking things, so it's good to be able to just stop, and you have to do it fast. The way that I worked was mostly with photographs or combinations of that. A lot of them were kind of established in using the computer, which is something I have done for many years. And it doesn't look, the end product doesn't look anything like a computer-generated image. But if I didn't have that image, it would be, or the computer, it would have been much more difficult. So they were mostly in the studio. But this is the second time I've done this project. The first time I did it was more about the space of the garden. And I did actually do 3, I think, en plein air, which was a little different for me and actually rather exciting. It was neat to be able to do that and to get a kind of abstraction also out of actual looking was very much what that was about. So that project wound up in the Federal Reserve Bank in Atlanta, where it's been ever since, I hope. It's on 60 feet of wall. And this project was in the Four Seasons restaurant in the city for 1.25 years. They liked it, so they kept it there for a bit longer. But that, unfortunately, is now defunct. It was in the Seagram building. The Seagram building, of course, is still there, but the Four Seasons restaurant is no longer. It's not the power center of Manhattan. But it was nice to have it there. It looked great. So going backwards in this look at the themes, this one is called Elizabeth Linnaeus's gloaming. Now, gloaming is a Scottish word for twilight, or crépuscule, or one of those words, and it's attractive to me because I was brought up in Scotland when I was a little kid, so I'm using the language, but it's. I was just trying to think of something. Anyway. The flowers are nasturtiums. So I found a quote that said that the flowers sparked at twilight, and the quote was from Elizabeth Linnaeus, the daughter of the Linnaeus who did all the taxonomy for natural world. So it's got several connections. And of course, so far, I think everything is about the natural world for me. My work is always something to do with nature and my reaction to it. We're talking about the reaction to the natural world and how it's used in my work. And I think one of the struggles and one of the interesting parts of it is that I'm trying to develop a painting. I'm not making a reproduction of a flower. So I'm using the natural world in a much more subjective way, I guess, so that I try to find something in it that I can use to create a new piece that just doesn't exist anywhere before, which is connected to the previous work and the work to come. This is continuing with the gloamings theme, but I think it particularly is very, very much to do with the gloaming light. And combining with the nasturtiums sparking at twilight, the light, the little bit of spark is just an imaginated image that references that quote. So it's just trying to get that in-between place where it's not too dark and it's not too light. You know, the forms disappear when your light is fading, so that you can just get this sense of something there, but you're not quite sure what. So it helps with the idea of making things more abstract. So with these works, these are the most recent, and in fact actually 2 of them are in a virtual exhibition in Ireland at the moment. big international exhibition. I was invited with Eric Fischl and Dan Weldon to exhibit actually these two pieces. So technically they are prints, but they are not editioned in the traditional way. They are solar plates printed by Dan Weldon, and we worked on the colors together. He kind of gave me some colors which I could work with, and the rest is painted, drawn on, scraped off. There was a whole lot of different manipulations to the image itself. So it's complicated enough that I can emphasize one thing over another. And it's also, I've been able to get different moods. So this has given me an idea of maybe the seasons again, or times of the day. I haven't quite decided on that, but the linear aspect is taken from my hand like a print of the lines of my hand. So this makes it very personal, almost a self-portrait. So I'm overlaying my ideas about the natural world into this, again, bringing myself into it. So it's a blurry edge to which part you go to, you know. The most recent piece, I have an image which is made from the inside of my heart before surgery, and I've now incorporated that in the newest piece, which is not finished yet, and which just gives me a self-portrait which is both inside and outside. But printmaking is something I've been interested in ever since I was a kid. And actually I have just discovered in my flat files a little lino cut that I did when I was about 9 years old, 10 maybe. And then I drew little etchings that I used for the school magazine. And so I've been making prints for a long, long time. Lithographs, stone lithographs, just about every technique. I like the technical side of printmaking, because it gives you don't have to think too much about the subject matter, if you like. Yeah. So these give me a lot of freedom, and I think that I can sort of take them wherever I want, which is it's an interesting enough image that you don't quite know what it is, so you have to search, and the more you search, the more you see, and that was sort of how I did it too. The more I worked at it, the more I found something else to work in, and then to shift it into somewhere else. So it's been productive, I think. You ask whether there's a difference in working on a canvas and working on a print. And there is, but they're very similar. What I'm trying to do is actually bring them closer together. So printmaking becomes part of the creative process. It's not so much to do with making an image several times. So I think a lot of artists have been moving in that direction. And we're not trying to make a reproducible edition of 100. It's not about that anymore. And it's much more to do with the possibilities of the plate, manipulating, working it. And there's so many possibilities that you don't want to just make one print of it 10 times. So that's where I am with these, really. They're a plate, they're Yeah, it's a kind of plate, not just the etching plate, but it's a plate that you can kind of work on. So, yeah, I think that's what I want to say. Yeah, there's no question that this area is one of the most vital areas for the visual arts, or for the arts in general, but particularly I think the visual arts. And everybody's attracted to the same thing, you know, the great light, and so it's almost a cliche at this point, but still true. And I think it's one of the things which is we're moving here, introduced us to all kinds of people, and I think that's one of the things that keeps us here. So it's a very special place. Dan I've known for many years, way back when we first moved here in the 70s. So he's been very supportive over the years. We're going to talk a little bit about the techniques and how I came up with some of the imagery of these public projects. They're very involved, and especially with the scale, because this piece is in Union Station in Los Angeles. It's the entrance to the Gold Line, which was a new line that they had installed to Pasadena. And it transformed a sort of dull concrete tunnel into something more lively, I hope. But when it was a competitive situation. When I actually made my presentation, one of the interrogators was saying that he understood that the east and the west walls, when they projected out to where they would see the Pacific Ocean and the San Bernardino Mountains. And I thought to myself, I think I've got the job. So it was fabricated in Germany. Each one is 55 feet long. And there's also a skywell, which I photographed north and south midday, which made two different blues, and that's where the blues come from. And then there's a sunset and a sunrise. I guess people probably don't have much of an idea of what's involved when you get to a thing of this scale. Each one of those mosaics has got a little teeny tesserae. It's only about a quarter of an inch or half an inch big. There's hundreds and hundreds of them. And each one's done by hand. I thought I had... This is the studio in Germany. And you can see they've made a full-size printout of my plans. And they put that down on the table. And they match the colors that they see on the table. And they match the shapes, of course. And it took 6 people several months to produce. Each one is made up like a jigsaw puzzle. There's maybe 2 foot by 3 feet chunks, which have got a little edge that fits into the next piece, so that the whole thing can be dismantled, and of course had to be shipped, and they're pretty heavy, because each of these tesserae is glass, and the weight gets to be amazing. They then can mount them on the wall, and in Los Angeles, of course, you have earthquakes. So I hadn't thought about things like that, and then I had to. And one of the things that they did was to put a steel mesh into the concrete wall, and they wanted to cut grooves right through the mosaic so that it would move if there was an earthquake, and would be okay. Well, of course, you can't have an image with vertical lines cut in it all the way along. So I came up with a solution where they cut a line in the steel and they put a silicone in, so, and with the tesserae on top of that. So when an earthquake happens, the little teeny pieces in the slot will fall off, and it'll be okay. And then they have spares, of course, so they can redo it. So the details of getting one of these projects actually to be finished is pretty involved. It took me 6 months for them to move the fire alarm, which they put right in the middle of my sun. So, you know, it was just a question of being persistent. So they, I think it was right in the middle of one of these. In this particular photograph, there's conduit visible, but eventually they managed to get it put above the ceiling itself. So all that's gone away. And they've actually done some very nice lighting. So it's all been reworked. So the MTA there is quite amazing. They've got some tremendous projects that have been worked out. So this is not my only one. The other one's in Hicksville, which is glass. It's like stained glass, but it's called art glass, laminated art glass. Very intense colors, which is one of the things that I love. That was sent over from Germany and also weighed tons. So anyway, there's 4 separate waiting rooms, each one of which has got a different theme. So it's based on a tree found in the Hemtes Plain in the 19th century. It's records. So both of these projects, I did a lot of research. One of the interesting things about the LA one was I didn't know what the San Bernardino Mountains looked like from LA. And I found a webcam which was focused on the campus, but I was able to control it and move it around until I saw the mountains. And one convenient morning at 9 o'clock, I got hold of it, and of course it was 6 o'clock there, so I didn't have to get up too early. But once I'd got a hold of it, I took screenshots, and I had a perfectly good image of the sun coming up. Then on the opposite of that, it so happened that I got the project on the day before the solstice. And so we went down to the ocean and I photographed the sun going down and I used that. So that was built into it. The imagery comes from photographs, from my paintings, all kinds of drawing in the computer. So it's a mishmash of different sources that wind up in being printed out to give them the beginning for it. So I guess that's all for now.